Hi friends, it's great to come to you in the UK today. I know you're having a lot of great pro-life events there, and I wanted to join in from over in the US. My name is Sue Thayer. I live in Storm Lake, Iowa, kind of right in the middle of the United States, and I am a pro-lifer just like you, so we're brothers and sisters united for the cause of saving babies. So wanted to share a little bit with you today about my story. I worked for Planned Parenthood as a center manager here in Storm Lake, where I live, for almost 18 years. I started there thinking that I was helping women. It's a long story of what God did in my life and in my heart and in our town, but God worked on me over those years there, and I came to see abortion for what it truly is, the murder of an innocent baby. But I participated in abortions. I worked in the abortion unit. I saw a lot of bad stuff. I did a lot of bad things. We would have a way of selling abortion that was very evil, very wrong. A woman would come in and we'd tell her, you're pregnant, the test was positive, and then we'd say, how are you going to ever pay for a baby? Do you know how much diapers are? And then we'd just slide that paperwork for the abortion across the desk to her and say, I think you know what the right decision is. So we'd snag her, get her into an abortion appointment the same moment she found out that she was pregnant. It was bad. I knew at the time it was wrong, but we had goals for how many abortions we did each month or how many abortion referrals. So we were under a lot of pressure to hit our numbers. And if we didn't hit them, we would get our hours cut. If we made our goals, sometimes we would get a pizza party or some extra paid time off. So they have a way of motivating the staff to think that abortion is a really great thing, and also to be very great at selling abortions. So that's what I did. Then in about 2007, Planned Parenthood of Greater Iowa, where I worked, announced that they were going to be doing something that we called webcam abortion. It was a new way to sell a chemical abortion. You may be familiar with RU486. It's the French abortion pill. Started in France many years ago. It came to the US, and the Food and Drug Administration wanted someone in the US to do clinical trials on RU486. So the affiliate, the Planned Parenthood affiliate that I worked at, did those in the 1990s. So we were very familiar with chemical abortions, medication abortions, the mifeprex and misoprostol that we used. We called them M&M abortions, which is just a bad play on words, but that's what we called them, M&M abortions. So when they decided that they were going to take it to the next level, it meant that staff in all the different centers all across Iowa were going to be selling these M&M abortions with no doctor on site. For me at the time, that was unthinkable. I could not imagine that I would be responsible in Storm Lake at my center for doing these abortions. The client would see the doctor only via a computer connection, and I would be responsible for everything else, including the invasive procedure to do the ultrasound, a vaginal ultrasound. So we would do that vaginal ultrasound and scan that image to the doctor who was at her computer terminal in another city. She would look at it and determine if it was not too far along, the baby was not over 70 days, she could push a button on her screen that popped open a drawer right in front of the woman, and the woman would take the first set of pills, the mifeprex, while the doctor watched. And then we'd send the next set of pills, the next vial of pills home with her, and she would take those in the next day or two. and then she would have the abortion at home. I knew in my heart that it wasn't good. A woman could come in, find out she was pregnant, and have an abortion all in the same 45-minute visit. Planned Parenthood charged the same for these chemical abortions, these webcam abortions, as they did an early surgical abortion, but the cost to Planned Parenthood was minimal compared to a surgical abortion, so it really was a big money maker for them. These started all across Iowa, and we had a lot of complications. We started doing them at day 63. The Food and Drug Administration had approved them through day 49, but we started doing them through day 63. Almost immediately went to day 70, and now they provide them through day 77. So there's just a lot of complication rates. If you check out fetal development, you can see, that it is a human baby at that point. We would have women take the second set of pills at home, the misoprostol, and begin the contractions at home and deliver that tiny baby in her own home. So in the toilet or the bed. And we actually had women put those little tiny fetuses in Ziploc bags and come back in and say, "You didn't tell me it was a baby." Of course, we would sell it as, you're going to see some clots, you may have a heavier period, you may see a little bit of tissue. Never did we use the word baby or fetus, of course. So it was quite a shock for lots of women when they would see that. So as that rolled out across Iowa and we had more and more complications, the Lord was working on my heart, thankfully, and I knew that I was not going to be able to do it. Storm Lake, the center that I worked at, was the last one that was set to go live with these webcam abortions. So I watched all these other managers, my colleagues all across the state, struggling with lots of issues that came up. They were always doing occurrence reports because women would have trouble. They'd end up with an incomplete abortion and have to go to the emergency room, or the bleeding was just so heavy. So it was bad. I spoke up about it. I said, I'm not going to do it. At this point, God had given me the boldness, really, to be able to say the things that I needed to say, and He honored my efforts to do that. But as soon as I started speaking up against it, I knew I was going to be fired, and shortly after that, I was. So it felt good for me to be out of there, because I'd been in the controversy of abortion for 17, almost 18 years. And once I was finally out, I thought, I'm not going to do anything controversial. I'm going to have a normal job, not killing babies, not being involved in this horrible thing that's going on in our country. So I did that for a couple years, and it was good. I had different jobs, and I kind of took all the bad stuff that I did at Planned Parenthood and shoved it into a back corner of my mind and tried to kind of forget about it. They were doing these abortions here in Storm Lake almost as soon as I left. And for me to be able to deal with that, I would not even drive down the street where Planned Parenthood was. I would drive clear around. So I didn't have to face the reality of what I knew was going on there and what my former coworkers were doing. So that worked for me for a while, the denial of the horrible stuff going on. And it felt okay. But within a couple years, I knew that God wanted me to do something else. I needed to speak up. I needed to do something. And I couldn't quite figure out what it was He wanted me to do. But finally, one day in the quietness of my moments with the Lord, I knew that He wanted me to lead a 40 Days for Life. And I don't know, hopefully you've all heard of that, but it's a ministry where people go and pray and fast outside of abortion facilities. I knew about 40 Days for Life because when I worked at Planned Parenthood, we would have people come and pray. And when we had folks praying, women don't come in for their appointments. 40 Days for Life was in many of the larger cities in Iowa, and my colleagues that manage those centers would say, those crazy people are here praying. It's terrible when they're here because our no-show rate is about 50%. Half the people that had appointments don't go inside if there's somebody outside praying. So I really didn't want to do that. I was nervous about it. We had been taught at Planned Parenthood that anybody that is outside praying in front of your facility is a crazy person who intends to do you harm. They hate women. You need to stay away from them, never talk to them. All of that. So here God was calling me to do that, and I was most reluctant. But I finally listened, and in the fall of 2011, I signed up to lead 40 Days for Life Vigil here in Storm Lake. God did so many miracles through those 40 days and beyond, but by God's grace, we had many, many people in Storm Lake from many different churches come out and pray. We had 480 hours of prayer in front of the place where I used to work. My former coworkers kind of went insane, and they were yelling all the time and so angry. And I knew in my heart that I was right where God wanted me to be, because I was praying for these babies. And the clients would be going in and they'd see me outside, and they knew me because I'd worked there all those years, and they would say, what are you doing out here? And I would tell them, did you realize they do abortions here now? And many of those women would turn around and leave without going in. So it touched my heart, it blessed me, and I knew that we were making a difference in women's lives, and the people going by would see us out there praying. Of course, Iowa is cold, and fall is very cold, so it would snow and sleet and all the things, and a car would pull up and hand out, 2 hot chocolates or something. So we were blessed in many ways, and it really did bring Storm Lake together in a way that had never been done before. So it was a huge blessing for me personally as well, because I'd never been that close to God before. I spent so much time on the sidewalk praying and really came to know Him. And it was a huge step for me in the healing process of coming out of the abortion industry and realizing the horror that I had done and the evil that I had bestowed on so many other people. So it was the start of healing for me, and such a blessing. But we ended up doing the 40 Days for Life campaign, and then about 3 months later, Planned Parenthood in Storm Lake announced that they were closing. I was stunned. I could not believe that they were going to close. We had a long-term lease that would have kept the building open through 2023, and here they announced in 2012, March 1st of 2012, that they were closing. So I was stunned by God's answers to our prayers. Could not believe it, and in fact, they did close. So we had a celebration there, a party. The guys in charge of 40 Days for Life, Sean Carney and David B. Wright, came to Storm Lake and spoke, and it was such a blessing. But I saw firsthand how prayer and fasting work. So it made me this huge fan of 40 Days for Life. And because I had worked in the abortion industry, there were like pregnancy resource centers and 40 Days for Life leaders that wanted to talk to me, and they were interested in, why did you work there? How did you get out? If we're praying outside of an abortion facility, how can we get our workers to come out? So I would share, a little bit more about working there and what it was like. And often when I would speak, people would say, you really like 40 Days for Life. Do you work for them? And I'd kind of laugh and say, no, but I just know it's based on biblical principles, 40 days. There's many times in the Bible where it talks about 40 days where Jesus was tested, and, so many other things. But I just knew that it worked. And so it was just a miracle to see it happen. So as I would share about that and a little bit about my story, I just became more and more brave, I guess. And I would have never thought of myself as a speaker at all. Sometimes I share the story that I almost failed a speech class in high school. I was so bad. And to imagine that God would ever call me to speak publicly was just beyond anything that I mean, I would have never thought that I would be speaking to you today and coming all the way across the pond to be able to talk to my friends in the UK. But here I am. So I guess the message for all of us from that is that God can really use anybody. And I did so many horrible things during my years there, and without thought, really. And we know in our hearts that abortion is wrong, and yet so many people turn a blind eye, or the workers do what they do without much thought, because they're really almost kind of brainwashed into believing that their work is sacred. We were told that there would be, Planned Parenthood called them clergy, that would write letters and sign these letters and say, bless the sacred work that's done here. And it's all a lie. It's a lie from Satan, intended to help us feel okay about horrible things. And even if you don't work, you've never worked in the abortion industry, if you're not actively out there on the street praying, you're not sharing on social media, you're not talking to your friends about it, you are neutral. And anybody that's neutral, any neutrality goes towards the wrong side. So we are called to speak up. But as I spoke more and more, I felt more comfortable sharing my story. When I first started praying at Planned Parenthood, I was so scared, too scared to even get out of my car. And God just told me, get out. And I said, Lord, I don't want to get out. I'll just pray from in here. What difference does it make if I'm in my car or I'm outside? And he said in my heart, you need to get out. So I did. But it was a process of tearing down the walls of the little box that I had built, that I was so comfortable in. God wanted more. He wanted me to do more. He had bigger plans for me than what I had become. And I remember thinking, Lord, surely you have more in my life than running a Planned Parenthood and all the bad stuff I've done. And he did, but I had to listen, and I had to be willing to step out of my comfort zone. And as I said, one of the first big steps was actually praying publicly on the sidewalk. And I could never have imagined that. Because I was leading the 40 Days for Life, I also had to speak to the groups that would come. And so that was kind of growing me and stretching me. And so once it closed, I thought, there are many other Planned Parenthoods in Iowa, and I know a lot of the workers. So God really called me. He just gave me this boldness to be able to go to the other Planned Parenthoods in Iowa and share and pray. And instead of being too scared to get out of my car, I would make sure that I was on their security cameras, and I wanted to try to be there when the workers could see me. I wrote to all the Planned Parenthoods in Iowa, and sometimes they open those letters, sometimes they don't. It depends on who's working what day. But I would write to them and say, there is life after the abortion industry. You can get out. Here's my number. Call me. I'll help you. And so it was good for me. It was healing, and such a blessing to flip over to the other side and be a part of the pro-life world. So now I actually work for 40 Days for Life. You can probably see my little 40 Days for Life. I'm an outreach director there, and so I get to do stuff like this. I talk to our leaders all around the U.S. and Canada. We have Robert Cahoon in the UK that does all of that. Well, he does it all over the rest of the world. And then we have Lourdes that is in Mexico City, and we have lots and lots of vigils in Latin America. So 40 Days for Life is growing, and we're thankful for the growth. But our desire really is to have prayer in front of every abortion facility, that people would get out and pray. I know your theme for your events in the UK is priorities. What is your priority? Your number one priority is life. That should be all of our priorities. It should be the church's priority. No matter what church you go to, it should be their priority, and they should be talking about life issues every week. and speaking up about it. We need to share on social media. Our heads really shouldn't hit the pillow at night without thinking, what did I do for life today? What am I going to do for life tomorrow? Who can I share with? How can I reach out? Can I invite friends over to watch a pro-life movie? Can I put something on social media? Can I talk to a coworker? Can I go out and pray? Hopefully you've all been out and prayed in front of an abortion facility. There's been 2 or 3 in the UK that have been long-time abortion facilities that have closed recently. Thank God for that. God is faithful to answer our prayers, not always as fast as we want, but He does answer. And when you are out there praying, it makes a huge difference. I can't even begin to tell you. And I know this from being on the sidewalk and praying, but I also know it from being inside Planned Parenthood. As I said, many women will say, I don't really want to have an abortion. But if God doesn't want me to do it, He's going to have to send a sign. And they'll drive down to Planned Parenthood for their appointment, and there's somebody there praying. And they'll say, that's the sign. And they turn around and leave. And a baby is saved. You may never know that somebody turned around because you were standing there. And, if you've been outside praying, you know that you get a lot of well, not a lot, but some angry comments. Some people will honk and they're mad and they wave with one finger and all that stuff happens. But you get a lot more happy honks and a lot more thumbs up. And a lot of people will stop and say, thanks for being out here. And I think when it's pouring rain or it's snowing or it's super cold, the blessings that go out from our prayers are like doubled, because people see us and they think, they're out there praying for life, and where am I at on this issue? And if that person cares enough to be out there, I probably should think about where I'm at. So you may have people come up to you and say, I had an appointment for an abortion, I can't do it today, because you were here praying, or why are you doing what you're doing, and help me understand more about life. Or sometimes we stand out there and say, we can help you. We have signs, that say we can help you, come and talk to us. And once they find out there is somebody who cares, they will choose life. So it's very much worth it. Sometimes when we're out there, we'll have pro-lifers who are angry and they're judgmental, and sometimes they yell. That is not helpful. It's not helpful to the workers, and it's not helpful to the women. It actually drives the women to run in the door because they're scared of them. And we used to have that, all across Iowa, where we would see people saying, you're going to go to hell for what you're doing. And, that may be true. Some of the stuff they say may be true, but it's not nice. And so 40 Days for Life prayer is based on Christ-like love and kindness, and showing women that they do have options. In the U.S., the abortion industry likes to call themselves pro-choice. They're not pro-choice. They are pro-abortion. We were taught to sell abortions. If they were pro-choice, they would be glad to show women their ultrasound. They would turn the screen so a woman could see her baby. They would turn up the Doppler so a woman could hear the little heartbeat. But they don't. They turn the sound down so she can't hear it. They turn the screen away. Very rarely will a woman see her baby inside of there. So we try really hard to have ways for a woman to go and get a free ultrasound so that she can see that baby. And then there's that connection to mama's heart. She begins to understand that it is a baby, it is alive. There's a little tiny spine and a little brain and that little heartbeat. And babies have heartbeats by day 20, 21. So there is life there, and we know that. So your prayers matter. I want to encourage you today to not be like I was, timid, nervous, just wanted to stay in my little tiny box. And God had to literally tear those walls down in my box one at a time so that I would begin to stand up and become the person that He wanted me to be, and not be so afraid. I still get nervous every time I speak. I pray. I just prayed right before we started this video, but God always gives me the words. If you're standing out there on the sidewalk praying and you think, what if somebody comes up and yells at me? What am I going to say? God will give you the words, but think about it ahead of time. Why are you pro-life? Why are you watching this video? Why are you part of the march? Why do you love life? Why do you love babies? Maybe you've had an abortion in your past. I'm here to tell you, if you have, God can forgive you. Standing up for life is one of the most healing things you can do. I had a part in thousands of abortions, and I am forgiven, and I'm redeemed and set free. God brought me out of there. I know I'm forgiven, and that is such a blessing. And I know if He can use me, He can truly use anybody. So you don't have to have worked in Planned Parenthood to have a story. Everybody has their testimony. And sometimes I think, well, the harder the test, the greater the testimony. So everybody, you all have a testimony, and it may be really hard, or it may just be that you know that life begins at conception, and so you want to stand up for life. Those are all great reasons to pray, and they're all great reasons to stand up and be counted and speak up, get involved, and see what you can do to help. Find a pregnancy center, volunteer there. For sure, get involved with 40 Days for Life. We pray for 40 days in the spring with the Lent calendar, and then we pray for 40 days in the fall. And it's very intense, but it's very huge. It's such a huge blessing. And so I just want to tell you all, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of life. I hope that one day I will get back there. I was in the UK for a conference a couple years ago, and of course the virus has kind of slowed everything down. Actually, Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry all across the world have used the pandemic to market their pills by post or their do-it-yourself abortions, because they think, well, you know, if women can't come in and get an abortion, then we'll send them these pills. And that, I mean, it's kind of the next step from webcam abortion. In the US, we have the abortion app now, where women can just download an app and see an abortionist via their phone, and then they overnight the pills to them. So we have it here as well. I know it grieves God, and so it needs to be heavy on our hearts as well, and we must not stop until abortion is unthinkable. So thank you again. God bless, and have a great event.